Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Subcommittee of the Full Licensing Committee, Wednesday, 8th of December 2021. Before we start, we need to elect a chairman, and I'm the person presiding at this meeting because I am the chair of the Licensing Committee, and I need to ask, please, for a nomination for chair of the subcommittee. May I hear a nomination, please? Councillor Richard Burton.
I'd like to nominate yourself, Councillor Butt.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. And do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, Councillor Burton. It's Councillor David Brown. I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor David Brown. So that's lovely. So all duly elected. So moving on, before we start, we'll ask our clerk, Mrs. Cutler, please, if she take us through housekeeping. Thank you.
Please note that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, bear with me, is being published on the Council's website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. I apologise, there we go. Only speak when invited to by the chairman. State your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Please ensure that you unmute yourself and always turn on the video function before speaking. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. After each party has made their representation, the chairman will ask each person in turn if they have any questions or comments. However, if at any point you would like to speak again, please use the raise your hand function at the top right of the screen. Finally, please ensure that background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cutler. So now we move on to item 2, which is apologies. I don't believe we have apologies. We have a full house, Mrs. Cutler, but our grateful thanks to our reserve who's come in to sit with us today, who is Councillor Brian Dion, Penn Hill Ward Councillor. Thank you very much, Councillor Dion, for coming in to sit just in case there were any issues that you needed to come in to substitute. You're very welcome to stay to observe if you so wish, or you're also free to leave. Thank you very much indeed for your attendance. Moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. I'll ask in turn of the subcommittee members if they have any declarations. So Councillor Brown, any declarations of interest?
No declarations.
Thank you. And Councillor Burton, any declarations?
No, none for me, Chair.
Thank you. And for the state of completeness, I also have no declarations of interest, so that's full house. Thank you very much. Item 4 is protocol for public speaking, and this has been provided to you. It's a new protocol, well, I say new, nearly 2 years old now with regard to COVID, but it's with regard to COVID, and it's been circulated with your agenda sheet. So moving on to the substantive, which is the application El Marino, and it's item 5. An application has been received for a new premises licence for the premises known as El Marino, which is 213 Ashley Road, Poole, BH149EG, and this matter is brought for the Licensing Subcommittee for determination. So I'm going to ask all participants if they'd like to introduce themselves and state their role, and also if our members would like to advise as to which ward they represent. I think it's always nice to know that. So Councillor David Brown, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, Councillor David Brown. I'm a member of the Licensing Committee in today's subcommittee, and I'm a ward member for the Bearwood and Merley ward. Thank
you, Councillor Brown. And Councillor Burton?
Yes, I'm Councillor Richard Burton, also a member of the Licensing Committee in today's subcommittee, and I also represent Bearwood and Merley ward.
Thank you. And my name's Councillor Jude Sputt, and I'm chairman of the Licensing Committee, and I'm chair of this subcommittee for the purposes of today's deliberations. And my ward is Creekmore, Hilborn and Waterloo, which is very close to Merley and Bearwood. So we thanked our reserve member for attending, and I believe that he's gone on to do other things, busy at Christmas. So now we move to Tanya Jardim. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Just getting myself. As you are aware, the application before you today is.
Sorry, Mrs. Jardim. You've obviously. No, not a problem. Just to introduce your good self, thank you.
Okay, so it's Tanya Jardim, licensing officer for BCP Council, and dealing with this application.
Thank you. I know you're having a bit of trouble with tech, and you probably thought we'd got to the intro, so thank you. I'm grateful. Mr. Wright, thank you.
Yes, I'm Mr. Wright. I'm a licensing consultant. Been instructed by the Moore family to represent them today.
Thank you very much. And we've got Miss Catherine Moore. Would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute, Mrs. Muir. Easily done.
Sorry about that. Yeah, Catherine Elmer, and I'm the owner at El Marino.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Muir, please. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Henry Elmore, co-owner and operator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muir. And we don't have Mrs. Roberts with us at the moment, but hopefully we can contact her. Mrs. Cole?
Good morning. I'm Linda Cole, and I'm the legal advisor to the subcommittee today.
Thank you, Mrs. Cole. And we've already introduced Mrs. Cutler, but Mrs. Cutler, if you'd like to introduce yourself properly.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Cutler, and I'm the clerk to the Licensing Subcommittee this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So in addition to democratic services, officers are providing technical support behind the scenes, but they won't take any part in the hearing. So just before I run through the procedure, I'd just like to ask that everybody who's given notice to speak has indeed been identified, and anybody who wishes to withdraw that notification can do so now. I'll just wait a moment. And we do have, Mr. Muir has asked if he can speak, and I've already said that that is acceptable. So if there's no comments, take that as read. So item 7 now, I'm going to explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking of the hearing as follows. So to begin with, the licensing officer will present her report. I know she's very keen to, so you'll come in then, Tanya. The applicant will then make their representation, and there'll be questions of the applicant by all parties. And then we have no responsible authority, so other persons by name of Mrs. Roberts, who's the objector, will then make her representation. There'll then be questions of Mrs. Roberts by all members, members of the committee to go first and all of the parties to follow. And all parties will be given an opportunity then to sum up with the party who spoke last to go first. I'll then conclude the hearing, and the subcommittee will deliberate in private with our legal advisor and our clerk present. And a notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day in which the hearing was held in accordance with the regulations. And that's today's date, so 5 days from today. And the notification of decision will include information regarding the appeal process as appropriate. That is 5 working days. And all parties now, please to confirm that you agree with the proposed procedure and that you are content. Mrs. Jardim, are you content? You're nodding, thank you. Mr. Wright, and another nod. Mr. and Mrs. Muir, are you happy with the proposed procedure? 2 nods, thank you. Mrs. Roberts, regrettably, is not with us. And Mrs. Cole, are you happy?
I am, Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cole. So item 8 then, finally, please may I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information they've already given in writing, because we understand that, but to expand on the written representation so that we understand completely your application. And all questions are to be asked through the chair, and there's to be no cross-examination of parties. Thank you. So I'll now ask our licensing officer, Mrs. Jardim, if she would present her report. Mrs. Jardim, you're on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So the application before you today is to consider whether to grant a premises licence at El Marino at 213 Ashley Road in Parkstone. So these premises were previously a bank, so are completely new in the food business. The application was submitted by Ms. Catherine Elmer on behalf of El Marino Limited on the 18th of November 2021. The application made is for the supply of alcohol on the premises as part of a meal or off the premises for delivery. The licensing office initially received 8 representations against the application from other persons, and this was on the grounds that the application would undermine the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and public nuisance licensing objectives. We were informed that on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Wright wrote to the residents who made representations in objection to the application, and we were subsequently informed that 3 objections were withdrawn. I believe that members have been informed also, but to confirm, representations made by Ms. Leonard and Ms. Smale are to be disregarded. There was one further, but this was not included in the report as it was withdrawn before the report was published. We received no further representations from any of the responsible authorities, and members are now asked to consider whether to grant this application, and should the licence be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with their licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any responsible authority or other persons may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jardim. I'll come to you in a moment, Mrs. Cole. I'll just ask if there are any questions in point of fact with regard to Mrs. Jardim's presentation. Councillor Brown, are you content?
No, that's fine. I've read the
Thank
report.
you. And Councillor Burton?
Yes, quite content. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Mrs. Cole, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, Mrs. Jardim, you stated there in the report that the application for the premises licence was made on the 18th of November. That's what you just said, but it was actually in the report. It's the 21st of October, isn't it?
Apologies for that. Yes, that's correct. Yes,
no, that's fine. It's just so we have it on record.
Absolutely. Apologies for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Cole. You shot my fox, but never mind. Well done. Well, thank you. Mr. Wright, do you have any questions on point of fact with regard to the presentation?
Just for clarity, how many representations are remaining?
5.
5. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Roberts, you're not with us yet, so I can't ask you if you have any concerns there with regard to the report. Thank you. So moving on then, we now ask the applicant to make the application, and we have Mr. Wright, who is acting on Mr. and Mrs. Muir's behalf. But once Mr. Wright has put forward the presentation, Mr. and Mrs. Muir, I will come to you and you can tell us all about your new business. Okay, thank you. Mr. Wright, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. May I mention that Mr. and Mrs. Muir wish to speak, and thank you for clarifying that just a second ago. Some of the following statements will be familiar to residents who submitted a representation. They are the words of the Muir family to residents. 2 of the residents have chosen to withdraw, I understand, but that is now obviously 3. And I presume that members have read, have seen the letter that I sent to the residents. Some I would like to quote from the letter and repeat. You can do so safe in the knowledge that you are dealing with a family-run company and a competent operator with a history of success. We are a family that respects our neighbours, wants to be part of the community and provide excellent service to our community, whilst making a living, of course. We have a background as restaurateurs in the heart of Bournemouth, which is a successful business model with no issues of violence or antisocial behaviour associated with it. While this venture is not a restaurant, we will bring the same exacting standards to our food and service to the community. I think this is borne out when considering the hours we have requested, which in our opinion are reasonable, until 22:30 Monday to Thursday and 2300 Friday and Saturday, with 2200 hours on Sunday. This is intentional because we have regard for our neighbours. This is in accordance with your statement of licensing policy at 10.11. And at 10.12 of the Statement of Licensing Policy, it states the licensing authority recognises that licensed premises make an important contribution to our local community. This premises is currently making a contribution without incident. The issue of alcohol is a common theme throughout the representations received, which I consider to be a low number. But nevertheless, these are important to the family. The letter continues, I can therefore inform you that we will remove from the application a request for the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises. Customers will be permitted to purchase food for consumption on the premises, but not alcohol. This amendment to the application is confirmed today before the Licensing Subcommittee. Another important aspect of the application is the sale of alcohol, which may only be purchased with food, as stated in the application. So it will not turn into an off licence, as seems to be a particular fear. The business is currently operating a takeaway service for food, with about 99% of the food is delivered to the home. The home delivery service since the pandemic has increased significantly. So given the ongoing situation and anticipated new strains, we envisage this will be the preferred method of purchase going forward. However, some customers still prefer to collect their food. These sales will take place during the hours stated, which was a conscious decision when adopting the business plan. On the occasions customers wish to collect their food, which is normally for customers to take home for consumption, thereby removing the need for our customers to linger in the area and deposit litter, we agree to place a bin outside of the premises, and we will actively encourage our customers to use it. The applicant will also actively keep the area outside of the premises clean and tidy, because it obviously reflects badly on the business if they do not operate to the highest standards. The premises currently operate a digital CCTV system with cameras both inside and outside of the premises, which we believe will discourage the antisocial behaviour mentioned in the representations. I submit there have been no problems associated with the premises since it opened. The images will be accessible to Dorset Police, which will aid detection and thereby reduce the antisocial behaviour mentioned in the representations. The last thing the applicant wants is to be associated with antisocial behaviour or violence. The reason for the residents' comments about antisocial behaviour in the immediate area, which I must say we cannot confirm because Dorset Police did not make a representation, which is obviously an important factor. But we believe could be that people could have been attracted to the area due to the lack of footfall following the permanent closure of the previous premises or following closure of the premises each evening. But the CCTV will monitor the area 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, thereby detecting crime and disorder and reducing crime and disorder in the area. So we strongly contest that customers to our premises will not cause issue in the area. The Moore family will have a presence. Their staff who live above the premises will be present while preparing food when the premises is open for business and cleaning at the end of business, which will all act as a deterrent. I also emphasise that the CCTV system will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The family asked to operate their business during reasonable hours and without complaint. But should any resident have concerns, we ask before this committee and in the presence of some residents that they speak to Mr. and Mrs. Moore directly, face to face, or make contact by telephone, and they will do everything in their power to resolve their issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. You have us at a slight disadvantage, Mr. Wright, because there was reference to a letter which somehow hasn't come to members. I know we've been having some tech problems, so that's quite understandable. We've now just received this letter. Mrs. Jardim, you've kindly sent this to us. Yep. And this is Dear Mr. Allwood. So this is to Mr. Allwood from the Muir family. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give our members a few moments just to reread this letter, because we are very thorough in our deliberations and in our preparation, and we will want to get a full feel of this letter. You've expanded on it, which is fine, but so I'm just going to allow a few moments. Councillor Brown and Councillor Burton, are you content if we do that? Have you received the emails?
Yes, I've got the email here and I've got it open in front of me. So
thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Brown?
Yep, same here. I'm just taking a look.
So I'll allow a few minutes, so we just read these just to. Thank you. Opportunity to add to that. So you've got all the time you want. So when you're ready, thank you.
Hi, thank you. Basically, I want to add, we are basically a family-run business that has been operating in Old Christchurch Road for over 5 years. We are very hands-on operator owners. Therefore, we are always present on day-to-day basis with the business. We pride ourselves on providing authentic Italian cuisine and have been developing our brand for over 5 years. We had a beach pop-up restaurant during the summer between Bournemouth and Boscombe Pier, and we operate soon market on the Bournemouth Christmas market. We are a local family, therefore being a positive and responsible part of the community is essential for us. So I will pass on to my wife, Catherine. She will just add another part.
Yeah, so our restaurant in Old Christchurch Road, Bournemouth, has never been linked to any antisocial behaviour or violence or aggression. There is a street drinking population within the area there too. However, they have never been attracted to dine in the restaurant or take out, as this is really not the customer base that we would encourage. Our delivery side of the business works on an ethos of providing restaurant quality food to customers' doors. Therefore, the price point is higher than a traditional takeaway or home delivery service. So this really doesn't appeal to the street drinking population. And we really did think about the residents in the area, which is why we open only until 10:30 during the week, and then 11 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday, and 10 o'clock on a Sunday, and so that we're not attracting any sort of drunken customers from the pubs and things. So we really want to operate a professional, nice, quality delivery takeaway service, but it's at restaurant standard, so that reflects in our hours. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I just think before we start, we do need to clarify one large, I think, confusion. Certainly for me, and I'm sure the other members will be wanting to ask exactly the same question. What exactly is it that you're applying for? We've now been told by Mr. Wright, and Mr. Wright, you might be able to help us here, that it is for, ostensibly to begin with, the sale of alcohol is, we understood it from the application to be with delivery only, and to be if you were sitting down in the restaurant on one of the stalls and having a meal. Now, is it our understanding now that the on sales part has been withdrawn? So no on sales, so meaning if you're sitting in the restaurant and you're having a meal, you cannot buy a drink, you cannot consume a drink whilst you're in the restaurant premises. It seems we understood it, or I understood it, that the sale of alcohol would be with delivery only, as it says at Part 3 operating schedule, delivery of alcohol only when food is purchased. So is the word delivery we're having some difficulty with, because delivery for us is when it's delivered to the home, as in a delivery home service. So we need to know if you do a delivery home service, which of course you will do, I'd imagine. So are you saying that you will only sell alcohol with delivered food at home, or are you in fact asking, which you haven't actually clearly stated on your application, that you will also sell alcohol for off-sales consumption with food? I hope those questions are clear. Mr. Wright, could you advise us, please?
Yes. The application includes an aspect of on sales for consumption on the premises. That has been removed, so there will be no consumption on the premises with food.
Good.
It's not what you would call a traditional restaurant. There is an area where people can consume food on the premises, but it is predominantly an off license. Sorry, ignore that last statement. It is predominantly a takeaway that has the off-license facility. So when food is delivered to the home, the customer can also order food, alcohol to go with the food to their home. Where somebody wishes to purchase over the counter to come into the premises, they can also then take alcohol with that order of food to take home for consumption at home.
Okay, well, as far as I understand it, Mr. Wright, that's not what's on the application form. I'm going to ask our officer and our legal advisor if they could make comment, please, with regard to their understanding. I'd be grateful for our members. Thank you.
Shall I go first, Chair?
Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, I read the application in the same way that you appeared to. Certainly, the application was for on sales. People sitting. I think it was a reference to 5 stalls. I think that's very clear in the operating schedule in paragraph section B. B.A, alcohol will only be supplied with a meal either on the premises or by delivery. All deliveries will be recorded to the address. And then I think further on there's a reference, maybe further back. Sorry, there were 2 references to it.
Yes, one reference, Mrs. Cole, is at Part 3 operating.
That's right, of the operating schedule. Takeaway and delivery, breakfast top bar for approximately 5 stalls for a customer to eat inside with the option of on sales, and delivery of alcohol only when food is purchased. So I don't believe the application is for alcohol to be served with or delivered with somebody coming in to pick up a takeaway, or just to come into the shop and order their food, to take alcohol from the actual premises only for delivery.
Thank you. And I believe that that's clearly clarified, as you've already indicated to us, and we're grateful. Alcohol will only be supplied with a meal either on the premises, we now know that's been withdrawn, or by delivery. So there is nothing in there which says that you may come along and buy a meal and buy some alcohol to take away off the premises for consumption.
And I don't believe it's for the committee to make that amendment, because that application hasn't been advertised, and
we do have difficulty. We certainly wouldn't be being difficult, but these things do have to be advertised properly. So we are just looking at the application before us, Mrs. Cole. We're very grateful. Mrs. Jardim, do you have a comment?
No, I agree with with Mrs. Cole completely. I've just read it again, and that is how we read the application, especially under the how we'll promote the licensing objectives, section A. That was the main point, that it clearly says that with a meal either on the premises or by delivery. My understanding was the same.
Yes, thank you. So we're not being difficult. We can only look at what is in front of us, and if it is to be different, it's not to say that you cannot apply for a variation, which of course you can, but these have to be advertised within the law. So we're not just saying we'll just pop it on. We are not able to do that. So please do not think we're being difficult, should we be so disposed to grant. Okay, so with that in mind then, and that cleared up, and thank you very much. I'm grateful to everybody for the advice. I'll look to our members for any questions of our applicants, agent, or indeed our applicants, because we've heard from them. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and yeah, thank you for those presentations. It sort of clarifies quite a lot of points, and also the reading through the letter, so it helps to sort of understand and clarify things. I just wanted to ask either the agent or the applicant, so, and I think it's sort of covered in the letter, the premises you've currently got is on Old Christchurch Road in Bournemouth. It's currently a sort of a traditional sort of restaurant, eating restaurant premises, but I think you mentioned that that's obviously an area where there has been experience of antisocial behaviour and street drinkers, that kind of thing. Similar in some ways, you know, to recent experiences on Ashley Road. So your premises on Old Christchurch Road, you've not actually experienced that in relation to the sort of operation of your premises there, or had any sort of licensing issues in that regard at all?
Thank you.
No,
Mrs. Stewart, if you're happy to answer that, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, no, we've had absolutely no licensing problems or any aggression, violence, antisocial behaviour. We've actually got, you know, it's a traditional restaurant with a bar in Old Christchurch Road, and we've had, you know, no issues at all. And like I said in my presentation, I think, you know, we are kind of a higher price point to a traditional sort of, you know, delivery service or a restaurant, and therefore that kind of population really sort of, you know, aren't attracted to sort of coming in because it's too expensive.
Okay, thank you. Did you want a supplementary, Councillor Brown, or you can tell it?
Not at the moment, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Burton?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things. The takeaway on Ashley Road, is that actually open and serving food at present?
No, it's a bank at the minute. It's a closed down bank at the minute, Councillor Burton.
No. Sorry, excuse me, just like to add, we are actually serving food.
Oh, you're serving food,
yeah,
right?
We are serving food.
Right, we were advised that it was a closed bank, so we got that wrong. Okay, thank you, Mr. Muir.
Sorry, thank you.
Councillor Burton, back to you.
Because it used to be Santander Bank, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
I've got the right place. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
I can't go and get any money out of there now to spend. So it's serving at the moment with obviously without the alcohol license.
Definitely.
Your other restaurant in Bournemouth, is that doing takeaway service or delivery? Do you deliver alcohol from there as part of your license?
Yes, we do deliver alcohol and operating as a takeaway and a restaurant at the time being.
Right. Forgive me. I looked at your menu there, and looked at. I couldn't see the takeaway menu. I could only see the. Is the price point of alcohol the same for delivery as selling in the restaurant, or is it different?
On the delivery platform, it's slightly actually more expensive because there's a commission side that goes to third party like Uber, Deliveroo, and Just Eat. So it becomes quite pricey when the consumer having to go and buy it themselves from the supermarket or the off license. So it's almost 3 times more expensive buying alcohol from us than buying it from the off license, or actually coming buying it straight from the restaurant, the operator. Because once we sell it through third party like Uber and Deliveroo, there's a commission additional fees, and you've got on top of that delivery charges. So it becomes quite expensive ordering delivery than actually buying it from a straight supermarket.
Okay, right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Like, Chair, you're actually on mute.
I just wondered, Councillor Burton, if it was a case of whether, unlike you're very good with the tech, you just couldn't find the takeaway menu, or Mr. and Mrs. Muir, does the takeaway menu exist for Christchurch? Just as a matter of interest, do you have one?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
probably couldn't find it this morning because of the opening times from 11 o'clock. Probably it won't appear on the delivery platforms. But if you go to Uber, Deliveroo, or Just Eat just after 11, you should have full access to the menu.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. That's that mystery resolved. Lovely. Thank you.
I hadn't spent long searching for it. I only had a quick look. So
That's all it takes usually with you, Councillor Burton, to be honest. When Mr. and Mrs. Muir, when we look at operating schedule M and we look at C, public safety, I notice you've got an awful lot in there which actually is contained within the Health and Safety at Work Act and fire regs. There's not much in there which advises us about what you would do over and above that, because obviously that's a requirement under law. All those things you've said there you'll do. You need to do those. They wouldn't be, to my mind, conditions. They sit in train. Have you thought about any extra things that you can advise us with that you might do with regard to public safety? I know one thing you mentioned was the bin and the cleaning up, which of course reduces litter and the cause of antisocial behaviour. I just wondered if there was anything there you'd like to add and tell us more about. Thank you.
Yeah, basically all our delivery drivers, they get trained, and operators like Challenge 25 policy. It's in terms of looking out for any antisocial behaviours or any issues to report it back to us.
Okay, perhaps I'll ask Mr. Wright whether he might to expand on that. He might understand that better.
Yeah.
I suspect. Mr. Wright?
Yes, the premises are purposely not gone late into the morning. They're shutting before the pubs start to discharge their customers. So that would mitigate a lot of the issues that the residents fear with this premises. Conflict management, how to deal with people. I would like to say that dealing with Old Christchurch Road like they do, they're well versed in dealing with any conflict or drunken people or excluding them from the premises, etc. So I think that experience, and I know it's not really, we're not dealing with Old Christchurch Road, we're dealing with Ashley Road, but that experience will be carried over, and conflict management training for the face-to-face staff obviously will be part and parcel of their offer.
Lovely. Would you give me just 2 minutes while I just tell the dogs to be, they're quiet now. That's typical, isn't it? Sorry, I'm at home and they're killing the postman as we speak. Would you just give me 1 second? Thank you. My apologies, the difficulties of running meetings at home. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Wright. My second question was with regard to the, at C, you mentioned a risk assessment. And it says risk assessment considering public safety is carried out at the premises to identify potential hazards posed to staff and customers. Could we be advised, the members be advised, how this will be formulated, this risk assessment? Is this something which is going to be done on an ongoing basis should the licence be granted, or is it something that would happen prior to it and then subject to it being successful, the new licence would apply? Thank you, Mr. Wright.
I think it's fair to say that all businesses under the Health and Safety at Work Etc. Act 74 and associated regulations must carry out a risk assessment. That will be the same for this business and will be a requirement of the other legislation rather than this legislation. But the risk assessment will cover all of face-to-face conflict, how to manage that, keeping your distance, open palms, staying friendly, etc., etc. All of the above. And it will be documented because it has to be documented where they have 5 employees or more.
Okay, so this is just a risk assessment that sits within, as I said before, the health and safety requirements. It's not another risk assessment over and above that.
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, I don't know if Mr. and Mrs. Moore can confirm, but they will be doing the health and safety risk assessment. That will cover aspects of the business that may be of concern to the committee.
And which is, of course, sufficient. Thank you. Can I also ask, with regard to deliveries, are these done via third party? Who does the deliveries? Or who would it be doing the deliveries?
No, deliveries not through, it comes through third party, but we deliver them directly. Our own employees will be delivering them.
So you're, Mr. Muir, just to be clear then, you employ people to deliver your products?
That's right, yes.
Okay, thank you. And could we also ask, with regard to how much alcohol would perhaps go with a pizza? So say you had 2 large pizzas, and what would your expectation be of an alcohol order to go with that? Obviously, this is so that although people are having to pay 3 times the price for alcohol, it's unlikely it would be a large amount. But what would you consider would be an amount that would be reasonable to go with to say a large pizza?
Probably 2 bottles of beer, let's say. 1 bottle with each main.
Yeah, or a bottle of wine.
Or a bottle of wine to share.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes, that sounds very reasonable. Okay. Thank you very much for that. It's just good to have these figures. I mean, obviously, at 3 times the cost, it's unlikely that many people would be wanting to buy an awful lot of alcohol to go with their pizzas, but it's good to have those numbers in train. Thank you. I'll return to our members. Are there any further questions you have for either Mr. Wright or Mr. and Mrs. Muir? Councillor Burton? Oh, Councillor Brown, you've got your hand up. And so have you, Mrs. Cole. Can I just bring Mrs. Cole in, Councillor Brown, for a point of fact, probably. Mrs. Cole, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just really back to the amount of alcohol that would be delivered with any food. You've made it clear in your application that you wouldn't be delivering alcohol only, it's only alcohol with food. We would rather it was conditioned. So it's really your view. Maybe it's Mr. Wright we need to ask, or you may need a few minutes just to consult with him. But the licensing authority would prefer it to be some sort of condition on there of an approximate amount of alcohol that might go with any food delivery. And the other thing, again, it's mentioned in the application about checking identification, but we would want to firm up on the procedure that will occur with the alcohol when it gets to the address. So I wonder if you could maybe just explain how you would, the training that your delivery driver would get and what you would expect them to do when the alcohol is being delivered to that home address.
Thank you, Mrs. Cole. If you'd like to address that, thank you. Mr. Wright?
Yep.
Did you want to have a few moments to discuss it with your clients? We're happy to stop proceedings for a few moments while you do that.
That would be a very welcomed offer.
Okay,
yes.
Mr. Harrod, would it be acceptable to stop proceedings just for a moment while Mr. Wright spoke to his clients?
Sorry, me?
Yes, you're on,
Yeah.
Mr. Wright. Thank you. Your
Thank you.
outcome of your discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may cover the procedure first.
Yes.
That all staff are trained. They're trained in Challenge 25. At the point of delivery, ID is requested. When that ID is shown, then the alcohol and the food. If it is obvious that it is not the person who was ordered, they're not over 25 or do not appear to be over 25, or there's no ID to show they're 18 or over, then the alcohol is taken back to shop, back to the takeaway, and the food is left. And that's a well-practiced, well-rehearsed model at the Old Christchurch Road
Thank you very much for that. I'll just ask Mrs. Jardim if she's content, and Mrs. Cole, if you're content with that process. It is what we are used to, but just to check. Mrs. Jardim.
Yes, I am content, but maybe it could be also considered if it is refused, how it's logged and where they can log that. That would be quite important to keep as training and information.
I think the easiest thing to do there would be for an agreement between the two parties as to how that is done. I think we're on the same page. It's for the safety of the public, and it's just to have a record of how many refusals there are, because if that builds up to be an issue, then it would be helpful for the business to understand that, and also for the licensing authority to know what's going on. So I'm sure we can organise that if we're so disposed to grant. Okay, and the other point was with regard to how much alcohol per order. Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you. If I can clarify, every refusal is recorded. There is a refusal log, a refusal register, which I failed to mention. So
that's lovely. Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Very helpful. Thank you. So now, with how much alcohol per order?
Right. That while the staff, the Muir staff, deliver the alcohol in accordance with their policies and procedures, the orders come through Deliveroo, Just Eat, and Uber. There is no control by the applicant, by the Muir family, how much alcohol is ordered with that pizza or lasagna or whatever it is. Just like with the co-op, for instance, up the road, they have Uber delivery, and you can order as much alcohol as you like for delivery to the home. What Mr. and Mrs. Muir have just said is that if they feel that the order is oversubscribed with alcohol, then they will contact the purchaser and tell them that they won't deliver that amount. I don't know if that gives you comfort.
No, it certainly doesn't, and I don't think it's what sat behind Mrs. Cole's intention. Mrs. Cole, could you come in and comment, please? I think it is clear that the subcommittee would want to have an assurance as to exactly volume, and I know that there's clear precedent that this has been done before, so I'd like your advice, please, Mrs. Cole, and for that of the members. Thank you, Mrs. Cole. And then Councillor Brown, you've been very, very patient. I'll bring you in. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Mrs. Cole?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know the mechanics of how Deliveroo and Just Eat and those third-party delivery systems work. I suppose my question I was assuming that the order would come straight to the restaurant, to the premises, and I didn't know how it was delivered. I think then the assurance is if your clients are, I mean, Chair's already said, it appears that we're on the same page, but if your clients are going to receive that order via Deliveroo or Just Eat, that third party platform, they're going to then provide their own driver. But if the alcohol ordered appears excessive, and I understand there's no control on what can be ordered because they're not the one that's accepting, for example, a telephone call or an email direct to the premises, but they've obviously got some discretion on what they order. I think we are still able to condition it that is all that they would deliver. So if the order comes in and it may be a large order, there may be an expectation, if that's what the committee decide, that they would only be allowed to be delivered X amount of alcohol. So, I mean, in your discussions, and I think we already had it from Mr. Muir previously and Mrs. Muir, what amount do they think is appropriate to deliver? And my advice to the committee would be, if they're going to allow this license, they can consider if they want to add such a condition, and there would be an expectation then that if an excessive amount of alcohol is ordered with the delivery, with the order from Just Eat or Deliveroo, that there's an expectation that they would contact that customer and only agree to deliver X amount of what's agreed is reasonable. It's a little bit protracted, I agree.
Yeah.
But that's where we are now with these types of third-party platforms, isn't it?
Thank you. Can we drill down into the contract a little more? Thank you, Mrs. Cole, for raising that. The order comes through, Mr. and Mrs. Muir, the order comes to your premise for 4 pizzas and 8 bottles of wine, for instance, okay? You obviously make the pizzas. The pizzas come from your premise. Where does the alcohol come from? Thank you.
We provide the alcohol as well.
Right, so an order comes to your premise for 4 pizzas and 8 bottles of alcohol. You're providing the alcohol and you're providing the pizza. So I can't see, unless there's something I've missed, why there can't be a condition, because you're actually giving that to a third party to deliver from your premise. It's not coming, I think Mrs. Cole her understanding was that the alcohol was coming from another place, which was beyond your control. But I believe that the provision of the items, as in food and alcohol, are all within your control. Is that correct?
Yes, in terms of giving out the items, it's all in our control. However, unfortunately, with the systems like Deliveroo and Uber and Just Eat, they're not. You can't set them up where actually there's a limit to how many they can order. That's the only thing.
That. So there can't be a limit and order on that with regard to that. So my next question is, because it becomes even more difficult with regard to contractual agreements. Deliveroo, do they receive a commission with regard to each delivery they make, or what is ordered? So is it a case of, if there's 24 cases of wine and 2 pizzas, do they make a lot more in comparison to there being 1 bottle of wine and 2 pizzas?
Definitely. That's right. So that's how it works. It works on a commission basis. So, and in a lot of instances, even when it comes to food, for whatever reason, if we couldn't, let's say, they couldn't deliver the food, because sometimes it's a student accommodation, you hear in all the restaurants where we couldn't get hold of the student and we're not even able to deliver it, they still actually, even if it wasn't delivered, because we couldn't contact the customer directly, because there's how you get the ticket is because of data protection. So you get a code, so you don't have directly the contact of the customer. So you go through a code that connects you to the consumer. And for whatever reason, if you're not able to reach them, it's almost obviously you fail to deliver. And however, they still take that commission. So that's our sort of challenges when working with these, with Uber, Deliveroo, and Just Eat. So they order through them, but we still deliver the food, and we have a control how much we give out. But it's hard to set limits of with these platforms. Say, actually, we can only supply 1 bottle of beer with this pizza, or 1 bottle of wine with this order. That would be the main challenge.
Okay, so that's you've advised us with regard to that. I think we are where we are with that. We understand your constraints, and we need to consider that carefully when we're making our decisions. So thank you very much for that. I think we are content and have an understanding of that. I'll just bring in Councillor Brown, if I may, Mrs. Cole, and then I'll come back to you, because he's been extremely patient, and I expect it's about this point. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, just partly about this point. It was sort of 2 points I wanted to raise, but actually that discussion has sort of helped quite a bit, because certainly I've been sat on licensing subcommittees for many years, like yourself, Chair, and it has been a difficulty with sort of in the past with takeaways about the sort of the checks and things that are made when the alcohol and the meals are delivered to the homes. And I think from what you said, you wouldn't be having delivery drivers and delivering it. That's actually within your own control. So not only the supply of the food, but also the actual physical delivery is by your employees and not people working for you. So you've got that under your control in terms of keeping the incident log and making sure that they are doing the right checks and the challenge 25 and all that sort of thing. So that sort of satisfies me a lot. I've got one other point to come on to, because it's a slightly different point. It might be worth covering after Mrs. Cole's actually sort of responded as well, if that's okay.
Yes, sorry. I was just taking that all in. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Mrs. Cole, thank you.
Yes, so the first point I just wanted to make, it really links back to what you said. So it could be quite tricky for you if there was a large alcohol order that came with your pizza through the third party platform, because I think you said, or Mr. Wright said on your behalf, that if you felt it was too much, you would be able to contact the customer, but you then mentioned a code. So are you not able to contact the customer?
You are able to contact the customer.
Oh, okay.
But at certain sometimes when the customer have this phone switched off, or they might have changed their phone recently and they forgot to change it through the app account. But most of the times, really, yes, we are able to contact the customers. That is not an issue. But would be instances where actually you might fail to contact the customer for whatever reason.
Okay. So that's fine. Thank you for that clarity. And the other thing I just wanted to say, really, Chair, just for the committee's benefit, I appreciate that the deliveries are going to be done by their own staff, the applicant's staff, but even Deliveroo and Just Eat, only because I've had people order that from they do have to do checks as well. They are trained, those drivers, to do checks. So I've had it here when my younger, sons have ordered food, plenty of food being delivered. And we have Deliveroo and those type of Just Eat drivers. They do ask for ID as well. So I think everyone is on the same page with it. If it's done properly, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. That's really helped. That clarification certainly helps. Thank you, Mrs. Cole. Councillor Brown, did you want to come back now? Mrs. Cole, you've still got your hand up.
I'll turn that down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, it was just another slight point. Obviously, you've been operating a bit as a takeaway for a short time there already, and this is effectively this application is just to add sort of alcohol on for deliveries. But a couple of the objections, and I think we have to take on board the objections that we've received, because most councillors are aware that there have been sort of issues with antisocial behaviour, street drinking, that sort of thing around the Ashley Road area, and there's been activities with Dorset Police to sort of address that directly. But a couple of the objectors also reference about sort of public nuisance from vehicles and parking and that sort of thing around the sort of Madeira Road, Hillman Road area. Just partly your current experience in operating the takeaway and doing deliveries, how has that sort of been going in terms of sort of collections and making the deliveries? And are you finding difficulties in terms of the road layouts and the sort of, collecting food for delivery? Or I don't know, how much delivery you're doing from there, if it's quite a significant amount, just your experience so far there.
To be honest, I mean, we have a nice car park at the back, and we inform all the drivers. Everyone is using the car park at the back, and we spoke with all the drivers to be considerate. Obviously, be cautious when going in and out of the property. So we're keeping the noise and any obviously nuisance to the minimum, not to obviously disturb anyone. But to be honest, I experienced myself while I was there one evening personally, and I had somebody sort of, I wouldn't say almost aggressively knocking the back door, because they're literally at the back of our property, because one of the lights was on, and literally I was taken back. They literally almost shouting at me, not even introducing her. The lady wasn't even introduced herself. She said, I live at the back, your light is distracting me. So it was like, it's almost been picked on before we even occupied the property, if you know what I mean. Where it's been vacant for a while, we came, took it on. We spent a lot of money to put it right, new roof, solar panels, new windows. Literally, we spent a lot of money to actually to look after the property and make sure it obviously appeals well within the community. But like I said, that's my first interaction with our neighbors, because we had light at the back door that actually it's a security light. And literally just being almost aggressively shouting, actually, because the light is on. We're not there to obviously annoy anyone. We want to work with everybody, and we're not there till midnight, 3 o'clock. And to be honest, after 9 o'clock, it really dies down. Most of the delivery we do is between 6 and 8:30, which is great, because like I said, it does go really, really quiet after 8:30, 9 o'clock. So there's barely minimum deliveries that goes out between actually 9 and 10:30. But we want to work with everybody, and we want to make a living at the same time. But we're not there to just cause problems with the neighbors. We want to blend in and want to get on with everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, Councillor Brown, I hope that answers your question. It certainly assists us. Did you have a supplementary? And then I think Mr. Wright is wishing to speak. Councillor Brown.
Yes, just very quickly on that. Thank you for that. And I acknowledge that this is not an application for a late night food, after 11 o'clock at night, and so we're not actually sort of looking at that. And it's the only reason it's sort of coming before us is because of the addition of the sort of alcohol to the deliveries, which I think probably won't suddenly ramp up the number of deliveries. It would just change actually what's sort of being delivered. But as we're here, and it's sort of been brought up in a couple of the objections. So you've got sort of parking. I'm just looking at the layout and plan of your premises there. So you've got a bit of parking at the back. It looks like a small bit for sort of motorbike, smart car, sort of small area of parking. And just in terms of the access to that, so deliveries, do they go straight out that back door?
They can go from there's the back gate. They've got us through the back gate. But as well, what they intend to use, which becomes as well more convenient, as well on the main road on Ashley Road, there's opposite to the post office, that area, whereas as well car park spaces. So we tend as well to use these ones. So we try to minimize actually using as well the back to just so not to obviously annoy any neighbors at the back. So we try to come from the front.
Right.
So yeah, we park. So we use the back, but mainly as well we try to use the main spaces, car park spaces in Ashley Road.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. But I acknowledge we're not looking at sort of late night takeaway.
Yeah.
Those sorts of issues, and it's useful what you say that actually the number of sort of orders and deliveries drops down after about 9 o'clock at night.
It does drop down massively, because most of the diners, that's between 6 and 8:30, to be honest.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And the car park is pretty massive at the back, so there is easy access there. And the front, there's also off-road parking. I can see 4 cars parked to the left of the post office, so it works both ways. Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Brown. So coming back to you now, Mr. Wright, just pop your hand down so I don't come back to you by mistake. Thank you. Mr. Wright.
Thank you. You just clarified what I was going to say, that there is parking facilities. People, if they park maybe illegally or without respect to neighbours, I mean, that's not in the gift of Mr. and Mrs. Muir to rectify, although they can mention it when they call in, but they do provide that. And the second point of clarity, I have mentioned to Mr. and Mrs. Muir the fact that the councils do test purchases, so their procedures at the point of delivery of the alcohol must be robust. And I know from experience that properties are set up with young people where they order alcohol for a purchase. So they're aware of that, and they haven't fallen foul of that at their current premises, the one in Christchurch Road.
I think I also see there's 2 disabled spaces, which I expect customers will sneak in there and sneak out very quickly. So I expect, I mean, they shouldn't be used, but they more than probably would be in that little cut-off cul-de-sac area, because it's bollarded, you can't drive straight through. Okay, I think we've exhausted the extent of that conversation. Thank you so much for teasing it out, everybody. Really good we have the detail. Mrs. Cutler.
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt. I've had a notification that Jacqueline Roberts is waiting in the lobby to be let in. Are you happy for me to allow her?
Yes, please do.
Okay, I'm letting her in now. Thank you.
Mrs. Roberts, are you with us?
Nope.
Okay, Mrs. Roberts, are you with us? Could you please put on your video so we can see you with us, and if you wanted to introduce yourself, pop your mic on. It's the Chairman, Councillor Judy Butt speaking, if you can hear me.
It looks like Mrs. Roberts has got her microphone muted. I'll just see if I can sort that out this end.
Okay.
No, unfortunately, I can't unmute her microphone this end, so we do need Mrs. Roberts to unmute herself and just let us know that she is present.
She's definitely in the house. She's definitely with us. I mean, I can see JR. That's obviously her good self, but the microphone's muted and there's no video on, so there's no way I can contact her, even if I was just trying to wave at her. So we're rather stuck then until something happens.
Let me see if I can send a message on the on our Teams.
Okay, well, while you do that then, I will contact Mrs. Roberts, because although she hasn't heard the debate, unless, of course, listening on YouTube, which may very well be the case, any more questions from members? I think members have exhausted their questions of the applicant. Are we content, both members, Councillor Brown and Burton, at this moment? We are indeed. So, Mrs. Jardim, did you have any questions, as is your right, with regard to the applicants and their agent? Mrs. Jardim.
No, Chair, thank you. I have no other questions.
Oh, there you are, Mrs. Roberts. We can see you. You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Hello, thank you. Sorry about that. I was in the car and I couldn't get a signal. Apologies.
Don't worry. My name's Councillor Jude Butt, and I'm the Chair of the Licensing Committee and Chair of the Subcommittee for today's deliberations. We've done the introductions. Regrettably, you weren't able to join us, but just to quickly let you know who's who, we have two other councillors with us today who will be making the decision at a later stage, and that's Councillor Richard Burton from Merley and Burwood, and also Merley and Bearwood, I got that right, yes, sometimes I put it around the wrong way, and also Councillor David Brown from Merley and Bearwood, both seasoned licensing members. We have our legal advisor, Mrs. Linda Cole. We have our licensing officer, Mrs. Tanya Jardim, and we have Mr. and Mrs. Muir, who are the applicants, and we have Mr. Wright, who is the applicant's agent. And last but by no means least, we have our clerk, Mrs. Cutler, who's trying to grab everything together and making sure you joined us in the room. So that's just a quick tour of everybody. Now, we have got to the stage where the applicant has indeed made a full application and made their full representation. So you've rather missed that. But you will have seen the application. You will have obviously read that, so you understand what they're applying for. So it may be that you would like to raise questions of the applicant with regards to their application. So the floor's yours, Mrs. Roberts. Okay.
Thank you. To be honest, I've lived behind the building, watching all the works and everything going on. I have no personal issue, obviously, with the applicants. It's just that I've lived there a long time, and I've watched the alcohol issue deteriorate our street in a huge way. I've been in my house 33 years, so I have watched the alcohol situation on Ashley Road and more my street as well, because people use it as a dumping ground for litter, bottles, people in my drive urinating, stuff being thrown in our gardens, etc, etc. And I do feel there's enough places on Ashley Road and the surrounding area to buy alcohol without bringing it literally to the end of our street. There is a particular doctor's surgery across the road from us where they're congregating groups after closing time. And I just feel one more place selling alcohol would not benefit the area at all. The situation with the burger bar personally is affecting me anyway. I was actually going to go over and speak to them in about an hour's time. The comings and goings generally are very debilitating for me personally, as far as the lights going off and on, the motorbikes going backwards and forwards, people shouting in the street quite late at night. I don't feel how alcohol at all, I can't see how alcohol at all is going to benefit anybody in any way apart from their profits, to be honest.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Roberts. It may be that just for some clarification, which might be helpful, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Cole, our legal advisor, just to clarify what perhaps I should ask the licensing officer with respect, just to clarify what the actual application is. It doesn't involve the sale of alcohol from the premises, which may assure you in some small way. Mrs. Jardine, would you like to be quite clear in explaining exactly what the application is asking for in this instance? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the application as received was for the alcohol to only be supplied with a meal either on the premises or by delivery. However, since the application has been submitted, we have been informed and the applicant has offered to remove the on-sales of alcohol at the premises. So as it stands, if it were to be granted, the application would be simply for the supply of alcohol off the premises by delivery. I hope that answers.
Yeah. So, Mrs. Roberts, what that actually means, because it is difficult to get that straight in your mind to define it. It means if there's going to be some pizzas delivered to a home and they wish to have alcohol delivered at the same time, that's fine. But if you wish to pop in for a pizza and you want to buy a bottle of beer, you can't. To take away.
Thank you. That would make things so much easier.
Okay.
So much easier.
And the other, you would have heard these in the obviously in the submissions, but regretfully you couldn't be with us. But they've also we've been offered by condition from Mr. and Mrs. Muir, who've put this forward themselves, to put a bin outside, which I take they would empty regularly, and also to regularly clean up outside to keep it nice and tidy, you know, so that it doesn't deter further from the street. And also another bit of information for you with regard to the £2,000 petition which came to last council. That's in fact going to Cabinet on the 16th or 15th, I can't remember the exact date, but soon, this year anyway, for consideration. I imagine it will go to our new Environment Scrutiny Committee that we've set up for a full review. But that sits with our cleaner, greener, safer policy that we have, which is looking very much to communities as to how we can better improve them, not just looking at one thing, but looking at antisocial behaviour, littering. You talk about, you know, the alcohol consumption of people weeing in your doorway, all that sort of thing, looking at it in one big piece of work rather than just picking at it. So hopefully that'll be coming to our new Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which we've just actually formulated. So that's separate, that 2000 petition, to this application, but it was just for information to give you some assurances that you and many other people who live in the area are being listened to. We do realise there's a need. That's a greater council need. But licensing can only look at the application we have in front of us today.
No, I appreciate that. I didn't actually realise, to be honest, Chair, that the applicant had actually taken off the sales actually in the shop, which will make quite a difference, I believe, yes, to my street as well.
Yes, that was agreed with our licensing officer. That was something which we were presented with today, which of course we will consider in our deliberations. Okay. So was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's fine. Thank you. That's reassured me quite well. Thank you so much.
So I can't see any other hands. Yes, I can. Mr. Wright, your hand is up. Is that a historic hand or a new hand? And Mr. Hand, would you please, Mr. Wright, would you please keep your monitor on, your video on? Thank you. Are you with us, Mr. Wright? Oh, we haven't lost you, have we? Oh, you are, yes. Right. Thank you.
Sorry, the hand was left up.
It was a historic hand. Okay, lovely. So I think we've asked all the questions we need, teased a lot out there. Thank you very much. So now is the opportunity for you're termed as an other person, Mrs. Roberts. OK, so you are not a responsible 30, you're an other person. And it's your opportunity now to put forward any concerns with regard to what you have concerns with regard to this application. I know that you've covered quite a lot in the questions you've just raised of the applicant, but this is your opportunity to come along. You can utilise your objection letter if that assists you, but just to expand on your concerns. If indeed you are content, then we're happy to hear that as well. Thank you, Mrs. Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, basically, if the application is only for licence to be given with a delivery, that would make an awful big difference, and that absolutely covers so much for us. That's amazing.
Okay, that's very, very helpful. Thank you very much indeed. So with that said, I'll ask if there's any questions of the members of Mrs. Roberts. Councillor Brown, do you have any questions for Mrs. Roberts?
No, Chair, actually, that's fine.
Okay, yes, I think it's fairly succinct. And Councillor Burton?
No questions, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we have Mr. Wright and Mr. and Mrs. Muir. Do you have any questions of the other person, Mrs. Roberts?
May I ask one? Have there been any issues with the premises that are currently operating by Mr. and Mrs. Muir?
I'll be honest with you, it's not linked to the alcohol per se, but for me, the comings and goings are quite disturbing. My bedroom literally looks over the back of the building. I've got a Ring doorbell. 1:30 last night, somebody was outside smoking, so the lights are going off and on continuously. And 4:30 the morning before, the lights were also going off and on, where people were outside the back laughing and smoking. I was actually going to go over and speak to them when I got home in a bit. But that, for me, is quite disconcerting that this early on in the stage of the business opening, it's causing that much. And my neighbours said the same as well. We don't understand why people are outside that time in the morning when it's outside opening out. That for me is a problem.
Okay, perhaps I could be assisted. If we look at the application, if we look at the hours, the opening hours don't extend to 1:30. I believe they close at 11. I think that's the latest time. So anything, obviously, which happened after that time cannot be attributed to El Marino with or without a licence for alcohol. So unfortunately, that is just coming under that umbrella, Mrs. Roberts, which I've advised you about before, of just some pretty unpleasant stuff going on in Ashley Road, which obviously the council needs to address.
With all due respect, Chair, no, it's actually the back of the shop is open. The door is actually open and people are going in and out of it. It's actually the shop itself.
At 1:30 at night?
And 4:30 in the morning. I have proof on my Ring doorbell.
Okay, so I think I will be asking Mr. and Mrs. Muir if they'd like to comment on that. Thank you very much. Mr. and Mrs. Muir?
Yeah, so the rear of the building, that door that the door goes through to the kitchen and the actual delivery, but it also goes through to the upstairs flats. So there is accommodation above the actual premises. So that will be the residents of the flats.
Yeah, the business will be shut. So it'll be the main door that you'll have access to the flat, and through that door, there's another security door that will go to the business. So but the business
is closed.
The business is closed. You can't come in. You can't order. The business is shut. That would be the flat.
Okay, so you're both right. So you're quite right, Mrs. Roberts. There is somebody there, but it's nothing to do with the business. So again, we'll be looking at those sort of behaviours under the umbrella of the antisocial behaviour and that sort of thing with regard to cleaner, greener, safer policies. But that's a council matter, not specifically licensing. So thank you for that confirmation. So, Mr. and Mrs. Muir, did you have any specific questions for Mrs. Roberts?
No, to be honest, like I said, we just want to work with you. Please, if there's anything in the future, we're more than happy to discuss it.
Mr. Muir, you get an opportunity to sum up in just a minute, and you can tell me everything that's on your chest. OK, you can clear your chest and tell me everything that you want to. It was just if you had any questions for Mrs. Roberts.
No, thank you very much. No, thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Jardim, do you have any questions?
Sorry, Mrs. Jardim's just had to step away very quickly. She's not feeling very well, so I just stepped onto the meeting. Sorry, Nananka Randall, licensing manager. I have been listening in, so I am aware of what's happening. And no, we don't have any other comments to make at this time. Thank you.
Well, would you send our very best to Mrs. Jardim? We very much hope. She was very cold this morning, so hopefully that she'll recover quickly. And thank you so much for stepping in. This is, for everybody's purposes, Mr. and Mrs. Muir, And Mr. Wright, I'm sure you'll know Mrs. Randall, who is our licensing manager. She just stepped in to assist us. So we're just at the end of questions for other persons, Mrs. Randall, and Mrs. Jardim, well, obviously isn't with us to ask questions, but do you have anything that you'd like to raise with Mrs. Roberts?
No, I've been listening into everything, and I'm very aware of what's happened, and we don't have any other comments to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I've just had a little note. Oh, yes, that's okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Cutler. I've just read that, and indeed we just covered that. Thank you very much. So now is an opportunity for everybody to sum up, and we will ask the person who spoke last to speak first with regard to their summary, and that's you, Mrs. Roberts. So it's your opportunity to, in summary, tell us your thoughts about this application. Thank you very much.
My thoughts are basically, as I stated, Chair, that I would appreciate that there's not alcohol sold to people literally coming in and out of the shop. That will make quite a difference to us with the problems we're having around our area. And I appreciate that that's been taken out of the application. That makes such a difference to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. And I'll ask Mr. Wright if you'd like to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Dorset Police did not object to this application, which is a strong indication that antisocial behaviour and violence associated with this business does not worry them. I submit that it should not worry members of this subcommittee. In fact, no responsible authority submitted a representation. The concerns expressed by residents are important to the Moore family because they work in the area. So I strongly believe they have a positive impact on the area with their presence by keeping the immediate area clean and tidy, and the use of CCTV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which the police can have access to aid detection. So it will increase security in the area and hopefully deter the ongoing issues not associated with the business, I must add. But they've listened to concerns about the consumption of alcohol and removed the request for on sales. They will provide the waste bin and keep the area around their premises clean and tidy. We believe the hours submitted are reasonable, a conscious decision, I must stress, out of respect for the neighbours, as mentioned by Mrs. Moore. They will close soon after or before the pubs start to empty, so there is no reason to visit the premises, but the CCTV will continue to record. We envisage the sale of alcohol with food will be for home delivery. In any event, will be maintained control of their premises, have done in the centre of Bournemouth very successfully. I submit there is no evidence on which the subcommittee can rely, which should lead to the refusal of the application as submitted. The application addresses concerns by way of the conditions offered, and we invite members of the committee to grant the application, safe in the knowledge that the Moore family are reputable operators who care for their business and the area in which they operate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Mr. and Mrs. Muir, your opportunity to summarise. Thank you.
Hi, I would like to thank you, Chair. Thank everybody for today. Like I said, we just want to work with the neighbours, with the community around us. We want to respect everyone. And please, if there's any concerns, we're more than happy to obviously highlight them and discuss it with the team. We just want to work together. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muir. Mrs. Muir, did you want to add something?
No, I think, again, thank you very much. And yeah, I hope that we can sort of all work together to make it work.
Thank you very much. Thank you, bless you. And Mrs. Randall? Your opportunity? No, I don't think the summary. I think the summary has, with regard to the officer input, has come through the deliberations. I think we're clear on everything, and we're very grateful to Tanya for her clarification as we went through the meeting. Okay, so thank you very much indeed for all that. So I'll now conclude the hearing, and we will now adjourn in private with our legal advisor and our clerk to deliberate with regard to what we've heard today. A notification of our decision will be provided within the period of 5 working days, that's beginning from today, in accordance with the regulations. Now, the notification of the decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate, and I will just ask our legal advisor to explain that right of appeal before we close. Thank you, Mrs. Cole.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there is a right of appeal to the decision that will be made today. Any appeal should be made within 21 days of your formal notification of the decision and should be made to Dorset Magistrates Court. The decision will come to you in writing and all the information about appeal would be included.
Thank you very much. It just remains me to thank everybody who attended today, and we will now go away and deliberate, and we will consider everything that we've heard very, very clearly. I would ask Mr. Harrod if he would stop recording. Thank you, Mr. Harrod. Thank you and goodbye, everybody.